Hey guys, today we're ranking the perks of Call of Duty Zombies from worst to best. This is World at War to Black Ops 3. I'll probably get off my arse and dedicate separate lists to the Cold War and Black Ops 4 perks another time. I'm going to be ranking these based on my own personal preference, however I will be looking at how powerful the perk is to justify my decisions. Let's get into it. At the bottom of the barrel we have Tombstone Soda. When you bleed out, this perk allows you to get your weapons and the other remaining perks you had back. It sounds useful, however you're essentially handicapping yourself throughout most of the game by, only having 3 perks, as this perk doesn't do shit until you actually bleed out fully and you completely die, which isn't that good of an ability, especially since this is only available on transit. On town survival, it was slightly better, as you could intentionally kill yourself just to revive yourself and get like the other perks. So in that sense, that's the only feasible reason I can imagine using Tombstone. It's just not a very good perk and not a good investment in every other situation. At the number 13 spot we have Who's Who, basically the slightly better version of Tombstone. When you go down as opposed to bleeding out, you enter a limbo state where if you can revive yourself or survive the 45 seconds, you get all your remaining perks back and you don't die. It's actually really good, and in solo especially it is incredible, as if you completely run out of quick revives, Who's Who is the only way of reviving yourself and not gaming over. So in that very specific niche situation, it's actually really good. However, it still doesn't do anything unless you actually go down, so it's not all that helpful. At the number 12 spot we have Deadshot Daiquiri, the cheapest perk at 1,500 points aside from quick revive. This perk allows you to snap onto zombies' heads as opposed to their body, and it increases your hipfire accuracy. This perk is just so criminally meh that it hurts, there's never an instance where you actually want Deadshot Daiquiri. Like, it actually helps you all the time, which is why it's not at the bottom of the list. However, literally every other perk puts this one to shame, unfortunately. At the number 11 spot, we have Double Tap 1.0. This perk is pretty simple. It increases your fire rate for all weapons by 33%. And for some weapons like the Browning, MP40 or ray gun, it actually makes them really good. For other weapons, it doesn't really do all that much. Not that much to say about this perk, really. It slightly increases your killing capability. However, Double Tap 2.0 made this perk redundant. Cracking into the top 10, we have Electric Cherry. Possibly a bit of a hot take here, but what Electric Cherry does is every time you reload, it emits an electrical shockwave that kills on the early rounds and stuns the zombies, which sounds quite helpful until you realize that this perk seems to have been specifically made for the Blundergat, where you shoot, reload, shoot, reload. You try using this perk on, LMGs or, snipers or whatever, it really won't benefit you that much. Not to mention it's only on a handful of maps, most of them being BO4 maps, and on the Black Ops 3 maps, it's just a shit version of Widow's Wine, Widow's Wine makes Electric Cherry redundant, so it's quite a nice perk, but it's never really all that needed. At the number 9 spot, we have Mule Kick. This is one of the most expensive perks at 4,000 points, and it allows you to get a third gun, and for some maps, especially in Black Ops 3, this is actually really useful, as having a couple of extra guns with double pack-a-punch really will make a difference. However, the main drawback to this perk, we're all thinking it, is when you go down and you lose the perk, you lose your third weapon forever, and especially if you've pack-a-punched it, that is a huge investment gone. Not to mention in the earlier games, it's kind of a gamble. You have to keep track of which wonder weapon is in which slot, because if you have, say the ice staff in your Mule Kick slot and then you go down, you will lose the staff and then you'll have to try get it back, which isn't that bad of a problem with the staffs, but it could mean the difference between life or death. So Mule Kick is a really useful perk, however use it at your own risk. At the number 8 spot we have the most overrated perk of all time, PhD Flopper. This perk makes you immune to explosive damage, fall damage, and when you dolphin dive, it emits an explosive, and the explosive gets more powerful depending on the height that you dive at. These abilities sound really good in theory, especially since it's not that expensive of a perk, until you break them all down. The flop becomes useless after like round 15 to 20, so there's really no point in using it. The fall damage sounds really good, but there's no point aside from Call of the Dead where it's actually all that useful, and the explosive damage negation sounds really good until you realize that in Black Ops 1 at least, there's no good explosive weapons. Like, at best this will make explosive weapons viable until like round 35, 40, 40, but then after that, the perk doesn't really do anything. So it's one of the perks that ages very poorly, and for that reason, it can't go any higher. At the number 7 spot, we have the iconic Quick Revive, the cheapest perk in all of COD Zombies at 500 or 1500 points. In solo, this perk revives you upon going down, and in Quick Revive, it allows you to revive your teammates twice as fast. Now, obviously, it gets to the position it is right now because of the solo ability. Like, obviously, Quick Revive is a solo player's wet dream. However, the multiplayer ability is a bit suspicious. Reviving friends twice as fast sounds really good, and in World at War and Black Ops 1, it was really good. However, in BO2 and especially BO3, it just aged not very well, where in BO2 you have the Quick Revive perma perk, which automatically allows you to revive people, you know, twice as fast. And you can stack it with Quick Revive, but you don't really need to. And then obviously in BO3 you have Gobblegums like Near Death Experience and Phoenix Up, which do make Quick Revive a bit redundant. Still an amazing perk for solo, however its co-op ability hasn't aged that well. At the number 6 spot we have Vulture Aid, a perk exclusive to Buried. This allows you to see the box and perks and Pack-a-Punch through walls. It allows you to pick up additional points and ammo from the zombies, and it occasionally emits a green cloud from the zombies, where if you stand in it, it completely hides you from all zombies. This perk can really come in clutch, saving your life, and as well as the additional ammo and points you get can really be helpful. Not to mention on Buried, where it's kind of confusing to know where shit is, it is kind of useful to know, like, oh, the box is in the maze, the box is here, there, everywhere. It is very useful in that regard. Overall, a very helpful perk, and I wish that it returned in more games. Cracking into the top 5, we have Stamina Up. Stamina Up allows you to run 7% faster, and it allows you to sprint for twice as long. Obviously, for trainers and for people doing Easter egg, this perk is essential. You know, running for twice as long and running slightly faster really does give you the edge over the zombies as well as boss enemies, and it's just a really nice quality of life to the movement, especially in the older games where the movement system was a little bit clunky. However, obviously for trading, this perk is completely useless. You won't ever need it in that sense. However, it's still a really good perk to have. At the number 4 spot, we have Double Tap 2.0. This perk increases your fire rate by 33%, like its original counterpart. However, it also allows you to shoot 2 bullets for every 1 bullet you fire, essentially doubling the damage with bullet weapons, which can really make most weapons that much more viable. Don't get your hopes too high. Obviously, eventually, the bonus damage won't help you, as the zombies will just have so much health that it doesn't help you all that much. However, in the early rounds, this is such an amazing perk to have, as it makes pretty much every bullet weapon twice as good, and you really can't argue with that. However, you also can't argue that Speed Cola is above it at the number 3 spot. This perk allows you to reload every weapon 50% faster, which is absolutely insane. I deemed it superior to Double Tap as its bonus effect applies to every weapon, including wonder weapons, not just specific weapons, and also Speed Cola was on more games than Double Tap. Not to mention, Speed Cola's effect won't age out. It's useful on round 1, it's useful on round 100, whereas Double Tap is kind of only useful until like round 35-40, and then it stops being as effective. At the number 2 spot, we have Widow's Wine, one of my personal favorite perks. When you take damage when using Widow's Wine, it emits a shockwave of spider webs which trap and ensnare the zombies, preventing them from moving and preventing them from getting to you. It's absolutely insane and very helpful in that regard. However, what makes this perk all the more insane is that you get 4 uses of it, and if you kill zombies that are trapped in the spider web, they have a chance of dropping you additional Widow's Wine grenades. Not to mention, the Widow's Wine effectively refills every time you get a max ammo, which is insane. Especially with Gobblegums, Widow's Wine could literally be more useful than Juggernog when it comes to saving your life. But obviously at the top of the list we have Juggernog. This perk makes it so that instead of going down after 2 or 3 hits, depending on the game, you instead go down after 5 hits. It's so extremely helpful at getting you out of situations. You know, a scenario that would have killed you without Jug, with Jug you're just completely fine. It stacks incredibly well with Widow's Wine, and in some scenarios you could argue Widow's Wine is better. However, Juggernog was just on more games, it was on more maps, and it's more iconic in my opinion, which is why it deserves to be at the top of the list, taking the gold crown on today's list. Also guys, if you watch to the end of this outro, I can promise you that I will absolutely do round 100